December 1859. The fog that year never lifted from the Valley of Bath. It sat like a pale shroud upon the earth, seeping into every crevice of the old Whitmore estate. Even the church bells sounded muffled as though afraid to wake the dead. What smile endures when the heart beneath it no longer beats? What silence answers when a photograph captures something that should not move at all? Before we continue, make sure to subscribe so you never miss these haunting untold stories. The Whitmore family had once been the pride of the countryside, a lineage of wealth, taste, and iron discipline. But by that winter, the mansion at the edge of Hollow Hill stood almost empty. Its windows reflected no light, its corridors no laughter. Only the echoes of what once had been lingered between its walls. Ambrose Whitmore, the patriarch, lived in a state of quiet ruin. Once celebrated for his charm and intellect, he now avoided mirrors and conversation alike. Servants whispered that he hadn't slept a full night since the passing of his wife 3 winters ago. Some said he still spoke to her behind closed doors. Others claimed to have seen her candle burning in the window long after midnight. But it was not Ambrose's grief that drew outsiders to the estate that December. It was his daughters, Eleanor and Clara. The Whitmore sisters were said to be opposites in every sense. Eleanor, the elder, was composed and melancholic, her beauty as fragile as frost. Clara, younger by 5 years, possessed a radiant energy that made her seem almost untouched by the gloom surrounding them. Until the sickness came. It began as a faint cough that echoed through the halls. Then fever. Then silence. The doctor from the village came only once, emerging pale and shaken. He would not return. Within a week, the Whitmore household closed its doors to the world, and the villagers began to tell stories. Some said Eleanor had died and that her father refused to bury her. Others said she was still alive, trapped between sleep and death, her heart refusing to surrender. On the 15th of December, a stranger arrived at the Whitmore gate. He introduced himself as Mr. James Huxley, a photographer from London, known for his work in capturing the departed in their final piece. His carriage wheels sank deep into the mud as he looked up at the mansion that seemed more mausoleum than home. When he knocked, the door opened before he could speak. Clara stood there, candle in hand, her face pale from sleeplessness. "You're expected," she said softly. Her tone was polite, but her eyes darted to the stairwell behind her, as if afraid of being overheard. Huxley followed her through a hallway lined with portraits, every ancestor painted with the same unnerving eyes. In the drawing room, Ambrose Whitmore stood waiting beside the fire, his hands trembling despite the heat. "I was told you take photographs of remembrance," Ambrose said. His voice carried the brittle edge of desperation. "You must understand, Mr. Huxley, this is not for art nor for curiosity. It is for love. My daughter must be remembered as she truly was." Huxley inclined his head. He had done such work before, photographs of children laid peacefully among flowers, of wives arranged as though sleeping. He had long since stopped flinching at the quietness of the dead. Yet something in the old man's tone unsettled him. "May I ask," Huxley began carefully, "how long ago she passed?" Ambrose's gaze flicked to the floor. "A day," he said. Then after a pause, "Perhaps less." He led the photographer through a narrow corridor and into a small parlor lit only by the weak glow of winter daylight. There, in a high-backed chair, sat Eleanor Whitmore. Her white dress was immaculate, her hands folded neatly in her lap. A single lock of golden hair fell over her shoulder. Her eyes were closed, her expression calm, almost serene. "Beautiful," Ambrose whispered. "Is she not beautiful still?" Huxley swallowed hard. He could feel the chill radiating from her body even from where he stood. She looked untouched by decay but utterly lifeless. Still, duty overcame unease. He set up his equipment carefully, each click of the tripod echoing unnaturally loud. As he adjusted the curtains for light, he caught Clara's reflection in the window. She stood near the doorway, her fingers twisting the hem of her dress, her eyes glistening. "Miss," he said softly, "perhaps you should wait outside." She shook her head. "Father won't allow it." The exposure began. The shutter clicked. The air seemed to hold its breath. When the photograph was taken, Huxley exhaled deeply. But as he turned to pack his equipment, he noticed something strange. The candle Clara had placed on the mantel earlier had gone out, though no breeze had passed through the room. Later that night, in the chamber prepared for him, Huxley developed the plate by lamplight. The chemicals hissed, the scent of ether filling the air. Slowly the image appeared, Eleanor, perfect and still, her head tilted ever so slightly. But as he leaned closer, something in the photograph made his hands tremble. Her lips. They were curved, not as they had been when he photographed her, but just enough to suggest a faint, unmistakable smile. He stepped back, blinked hard and looked again. The smile was there, subtle but undeniable. Her eyes, though closed in reality, seemed faintly lifted beneath the lids as though aware of his gaze. Downstairs the clock struck midnight, and from the hallway beyond his door came the sound of a slow, deliberate footstep. Huxley froze. The sound came again. Then another. A drag as though something heavy brushed against the wall. He opened the door, the candlelight trembling in his hand. The corridor was empty. Only a cold draft drifted through, carrying with it a scent, flowers and decay intertwined. He closed the door quickly and sat back against it, breathing hard. His gaze returned to the photograph on the table. The smile now seemed broader. And just beneath Eleanor's chair, something he hadn't noticed before, a shadow. It did not belong to her, nor to the furniture. It was the shape of someone standing behind her. The same shape that had not been in the room. That night, James Huxley did not sleep. The morning light struggled to enter the Whitmore mansion, filtered through thick curtains that seemed to reject the day. James Huxley awoke in the gray hour before dawn, his mind heavy from restless half-sleep. The photograph sat on the table across from his bed, half-developed, the strange smile still etched across Eleanor's face. He told himself it was a trick of exposure, a shift of shadow, a chemical imperfection. Yet no reasoning could still the unease coiling in his chest. He dressed quickly, intending to show the results to Ambrose Whitmore and be gone before nightfall. But when he descended the stairs, the house seemed different. It was too quiet. Even the fire in the hearth had died, leaving behind only the faint scent of smoke and oil. Ambrose sat in the parlor, staring into the empty fireplace. His hands, pale and thin, rested on his knees. He did not turn when Huxley entered. "I finished the photograph, sir," Huxley said, keeping his voice low. "Would you care to see it?" The old man looked up slowly, eyes hollow. "Later," he whispered. "She's resting now." Resting. The word unsettled Huxley more than silence would have. "Is Miss Clara awake?" he asked. Ambrose's mouth twitched. "She hasn't slept," he murmured. "She says her sister calls to her. From the other room. Foolishness, of course. Grief can make one hear things." But even as he spoke, a faint sound drifted through the air, a creak from upstairs, deliberate and slow. Ambrose froze, his face tightening. Without a word, he rose from his chair and walked toward the staircase. Huxley followed, heart pounding. They climbed the steps together, the boards groaning beneath their weight. The air grew colder the higher they went. At the top of the landing, the corridor stretched ahead like the inside of a coffin, narrow, dim, lined with portraits whose painted eyes seemed to follow them. The last door on the right stood slightly ajar. Ambrose pushed it open. The room was just as it had been the day before, Eleanor seated in her chair, her pale dress glowing faintly in the weak morning light. Only one detail had changed. Her head was turned. Not by much, just enough to face the doorway where they stood. Ambrose's breath hitched. "She was facing the window," he whispered. I left her facing the window." Huxley's mouth went dry. Perhaps Miss Clara?" "No one touches her but me," Ambrose said sharply. At that moment, Clara appeared behind them, her eyes red from crying. "Father," she said softly, "you shouldn't be here." He turned on her. "Did you move her, Clara?" Clara shook her head. "No, father. I haven't gone in since last night." For a long, tense silence, none of them moved. Then Huxley stepped forward, drawn by something he couldn't name. Eleanor's face was still serene, lips faintly curved, but her hands, he could swear her fingers had shifted. Yesterday they had been folded neatly together. Now they rested apart as if she had tried to lift them. He forced himself to speak. "The air in the room is cold. It could be contraction in the muscles. A natural occurrence after." Ambrose didn't let him finish. "Don't speak of her body," he hissed. "She's not gone. She can't be." Clara's voice trembled. "Father, please. You're frightening me." But Ambrose only knelt beside the chair, pressing a kiss to Eleanor's cold hand. "You'll see," he murmured. "She'll wake. She always listened to me." That evening, as the fog returned to swallow the estate once more, Huxley prepared to leave. He couldn't bear another night in that house of ghosts. But when he went to find Ambrose, he discovered the front doors bolted from within. Every window was locked. He was trapped. Clara found him pacing near the stairwell. "He won't let you go," she said quietly. "He says the picture isn't right yet. He wants another." Huxley frowned. "Another? That's madness." There's no need. He says she smiled for you, Clara interrupted. Her gaze darted toward the dark hallway. He says you made her do it. That you woke her. The air between them felt suffocating. That's not possible, Huxley said. It's a photograph, not a séance. Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. Then explain why her chair was empty this morning. He stared at her. Empty? She nodded. I went to her room after dawn. The dress was still there. The flowers. But she wasn't. A sound echoed through the house, soft, deliberate, like the sweep of fabric across the floorboards. Both of them turned toward the noise. Father? Clara called. No answer. The sound came again, closer now, descending the stairs. Huxley grabbed the lantern and held it toward the stairwell. The flickering light revealed the silhouette of a woman standing at the bottom of the steps. Her hair gleamed pale gold. Her face, in the dim glow, seemed both familiar and impossibly wrong. Clara gasped. Eleanor? The figure tilted her head, the faintest smile touching her lips. Huxley's hand trembled so violently that the lantern shook, scattering shadows across the walls. When the light steadied again, the figure was gone. Only the faint sound of the back door opening and closing broke the silence. Clara bolted toward the doorway, but Huxley caught her arm. No, he said firmly. You can't. She's alone out there. Clara cried. It's freezing. But by the time they reached the yard, there was nothing. No footprints in the frost, no sign of passage. Only the fog moving like breath over the earth. Later that night, Huxley found Ambrose in his study, the photograph clutched in his hands. His eyes were wild, his lips moving without sound. On the desk beside him sat a new plate, freshly coated with collodion. She came to me, Ambrose said hoarsely. She smiled because she's waiting. We must capture it again when she truly returns. Huxley's patience cracked. Mr. Whitmore, your daughter is dead. Ambrose's eyes snapped up, gleaming with something close to madness. No, she was sleeping. She told me so. In that moment, Huxley realized there would be no leaving that house. Not until whatever haunted it was done. Outside, the fog thickened again, wrapping the mansion in silence. From somewhere deep within its walls came the faintest echo of laughter, soft, distant, and unmistakably female. It sounded like a smile caught between life and death. When the clock struck midnight on the 5th of November 1859, the wind clawed at the Whitmore estate with a vengeance. It moaned through the corridors as though remembering. Within the drawing room, the fire had long died, yet the photograph of the Whitmore sisters still gleamed upon the mantel, untouched by soot or dust, as if time itself dared not stain it. Dr. Everly sat before it, his hands trembling, the truth gnawing at his sanity. He had exhumed the truth, quite literally. Beneath the frozen soil of Whitmore Cemetery, 2 coffins had been unearthed. One contained the body of Clara Whitmore, peaceful and preserved as though in sleep. The other held only shreds of fabric, claw marks, and the impression of a body long since gone. Lucy's coffin had been empty. The doctor's eyes darted between the photograph and the empty air around him. He could still hear it, the faint sound of a voice that did not belong to the living. Do you see it now, doctor? It whispered, not from behind him but inside his own skull. His breath caught. The candle beside him flickered, and for a brief second, the image in the photograph shimmered. Clara's head tilted. Lucy's eyes, those wide, knowing eyes, blinked. He staggered back, knocking the chair to the floor. The silence that followed was deafening. He tore through his notes, his autopsy sketches, the testimonies, the medical records. All of them pointed to the same impossible truth. Clara had been pronounced dead after falling victim to the fever that plagued Whitmore Hollow. Lucy, stricken with grief, refused to accept her sister's death. She sat by the coffin for 3 days, whispering, praying, until the townsfolk took her away. When they buried Clara, Lucy vanished that same night. Some said she wandered into the woods. Others whispered she followed her sister into the grave. No one thought to check the coffin again. Until now. A thunderclap shook the manor. Dr. Everly turned toward the window, where 2 faint silhouettes stood in the garden beyond the glass. 2 women in tattered white, their faces pale, their hands entwined. He blinked and they were gone, but the glass bore 2 damp handprints, slowly fading. He wanted to flee, but his legs betrayed him. Instead, he collapsed into the chair, his breath shallow, his heart pounding as the fire rekindled itself in the hearth. The photograph pulsed with unnatural life. The sisters' faces were smiling now, both of them. Yet there was something else. Behind them, almost invisible, stood another figure. A shadow wearing his own outline. Dr. Everly's reflection in the photo. He stared, horrified, as his mouth in the image began to move though his own lips were still. "Now you've joined us, doctor," it whispered. By dawn the estate was silent once more. The servants who arrived later that morning found the study untouched, save for the overturned chair and the photograph lying face down on the floor. When they turned it over they gasped. The photograph no longer showed the Whitmore sisters. It showed 3 figures. 2 women and a man. All smiling. All still. In the days that followed, the townsfolk spoke of strange occurrences, the faint laughter of girls heard from the cemetery gates, a candle burning in the manor long after it had been sealed, and a doctor's pocket watch found buried beside the old Whitmore graves. It was still ticking. Years later, when photography advanced beyond its primitive stills, a scholar studying the earliest post-mortem portraits came upon the Whitmore image in a dusty archive. He was captivated by its clarity, the sharpness of the faces, the light in their eyes. He enlarged it under the lens, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw the pupils contract, as if reacting to the flame of his lamp. When he blinked, the illusion vanished, but the air had turned cold, and the scent of damp earth filled the room. He shut the file and sealed it away, labeling it Whitmore Photograph, Unverified. It was never displayed again. But those who have seen it claim that each time it resurfaces, the image changes slightly. The eyes follow. The smiles deepen. And always, somewhere in the background, a new figure appears, someone who wasn't there before. What became of the Whitmore sisters remains a whisper between grave and glass, a tale told only by the dead. But should you ever find yourself staring into one of those old sepia portraits, look closely at the faces. Count them. Then count again. Because sometimes the camera captures more than memory, it captures the soul still searching for recognition. And if, by some cruel twist, one of those faces happens to turn ever so slightly toward you, smiling faintly as though in thanks, pray it's only the light. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe our channel.